Aibovan, and a very good evening to all our viewers here on TV1. I'm Dr. Primal Fernando, and this is your weekly dose of wellness here on Healthline. And a warm welcome to all our viewers joining in across the globe by YouTube as well. Today, I would say it's a very special edition of Healthline, because usually what we do is we invite a medical consultant and we talk about a common disease or condition that ails our general public. But today we are going to narrate a story that inspires people living with disability. If you are an ardent follower of Healthline, you would recall that we did a program on cerebral palsy. If I may just briefly recap what cerebral palsy is, it is caused by an insult or damage to the developing brain. And after watching this program, I had one of our viewers, someone I've been constantly in touch with, reaching out to me and saying that he is willing to come forward and to inspire younger generation who are living with disability, and also to inspire our parents to never give up on their children who has disability. He is someone who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, who has undergone a lot of difficulties in life, but amidst all that, he has risen up to the challenge, and currently he is also mentoring people living with disability. Today our guest for Healthline is Mr. Primal Fernando. A very good evening, and thank you for joining us on Healthline.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, Dilshan.
So, first and foremost, Primal, for our viewers, if you can give us an introduction of yourself. What are you doing? Where are you residing? What is your current situation?
Thank you. I was born in Colombo, and in Boralla to be precise, and my hometown is Moratuwa. And I come from a small family. I have a younger brother, and sadly my father has passed away about 12 years ago, and it's only my mother living with us, and I have a family of my own, my wife and my daughter, and we are currently based in Melbourne.
Melbourne,
yes.
Right. So now we know that you were diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Do you were you intrigued by the events that happened since your birth? Are you aware of what really happened, and when were you really diagnosed with cerebral palsy?
Let me start as my mother would call it, the day of drama when I was born. Up to that delivery date, it was a normal pregnancy, and my parents were obviously overjoyed to have their firstborn. But things kind of went horribly wrong on the day of the delivery, and the particular doctor at the time made some grave errors, and as a result my mother had a cardiac arrest, and
during the delivery process.
That's right, and which resulted in her she had to be revived, and in the process there was a loss of oxygen to me, and then I was born. So, but initially they didn't diagnose me as cerebral palsy. What happened was so my mother noticed that in the first year that I was giving preference to my left hand side.
Yeah, just to interject, Primal. Now, before we move further, just wanted to clarify with you. Now, was your mother's? You were the firstborn in the family, right? And was the pregnancy until delivery, was it uncomplicated?
Yes.
Yes. And the time of delivery, was it on the due date, or was it a premature birth, or what was that situation?
No, my understanding is that it was just probably a couple of days overdue. I'm not sure the reason why, but that's what I've been told.
So the actual delivery happened past the days that she was actually due.
That's right.
Right. So you said now your mother had a cardiac arrest while giving birth to you.
Yes.
And that result, she was due for a normal labor, was it?
That's right.
And then because of the cardiac arrest, they rushed her in for an emergency cesarean section.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Right. So when you were born, do you know whether you were transferred to a neonatal ICU? Were you in the care of ICU?
No.
No. Right. And then you were saying about how your mother noticed certain differences.
Yes. So that I would give preference to my left hand side.
Okay.
And
meaning that your right hand side was not as active as the left hand?
Yes.
Right.
And I mean, it was functioning, but I was giving
Preference to the left.
Yes. And in your program, like I said to you, I watched it with great interest, and Dr. Delaney mentioned about it's a key warning sign if a child is giving preference within the first year. So exactly that has happened to me, and unfortunately, my mother has mentioned that to the doctors, but it was not taken into consideration.
Right.
And so getting back to your question about when I was diagnosed, actually I was diagnosed when I was 15.
15.
Yeah.
So until you were 15 years old, no one really came up with the diagnosis of cerebral palsy.
No.
So what were you being treated as? There were some disabilities, as I know.
Yeah.
And until such point, what were you treated as? What was the working diagnosis?
Yes. So my parents obviously were worried about this, and at the age of 4, my parents actually took me to the US, to Los Angeles, where they have done some further examinations, and they were my parents were told back in, this is in 83, that I am having a kind of a developmental delay, but they haven't labeled it as cerebral palsy. So when I came to Sri Lanka and kind of when I started school, people used to call me the polio kid, you know. So and I know, and I think some people, because I was a bit slow in terms of, because I was so my leg, I was there was a little bit of muscle weakness, and
leg
I was
in the sense the right leg.
Right leg.
Okay.
And I was dragging the foot, but I could. I was a very active kid, and so I didn't get a proper diagnosis until when I was 14 or 15.
Right. So if you have been following Healthline, if you watched the episode on cerebral palsy where we had Dr. Delaney Vipulaguna talking about cerebral palsy, she mentioned 3 warning signs that you the parents have to be on the lookout in the first year of development in your kid. One being the child showing hand preference, because until 1 year of age they are not supposed to be showing preference to one hand, and also whether the child is able to sit by themselves without support upon reaching 1 year of age, and also when they start walking, whether they are tiptoeing rather than keeping the entire foot on the ground. So as we are in conversation with Primal, he has shown hand preference to his left hand, and also you said you were dragging your feet.
Yes.
So you were not walking the way that normal kids do.
Yes.
And now you mentioned about school.
Yeah.
So were you educated in a private school, or was it a government sector school? How was that? Was it a school for kids with special needs, or how did that work?
No. So I went to a mainstream school. Here they call it a normal school.
Right.
In Melbourne they use the term mainstream. So I went to a leading semi-government school in Colombo, so it was an interesting journey, but I managed to overcome many challenges there. So I'm here to speak about that.
I'm sure you had many challenges. Now, let's talk about your school life. Were there any discrimination from the teachers, your classmates? You said you were known as the polio kid. And were there any other signs of you being discriminated against? Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to send the message across to a society that living with a disability doesn't mean that you should discriminate that child, and definitely not to apportion blame to anyone. But our message is, even if a person is living with disability, we should be empathetic and always try to get them, reintegrate them back to society so that they can continue with their life, get them to back to normal life as soon as possible. And that is possible because we have living proof here sitting with us in the studios, and he is here to share his message of positivity. So that is one key message that we want to reiterate today here on Helpline. So was there any discrimination against you in school?
Yeah, so let me put it this way, Dilshan. So the overall, I would say I had a very positive experience, but the first few years of my schooling were very difficult. So yes, there were forms of discrimination, and I would say I was segregated a little bit, and there were various incidents which I think it's now it happened 30 years ago.
All water
Yeah,
under the bridge.
that's right. But all I can say is that the first 2 years of my schooling, so to give you a context as to what I endure, I used to cry every single day, and at my school, from the main gate up to the lower kindergarten, it's about a half an hour, so not half an hour, half a kilometer walk, and I was always late. And at this moment, I just want to pay tribute to my grandfather. He used to come to school with me every day, and sadly has passed away. And he used to encourage me every day, and he used to tell me, "Puta, I will buy you ice cream or chocolate or soft drink after school. Just go to school." And so that was so that should give you as to what I felt, and I think it just I was different, right? So
So at that point also, did you feel that you were different from the other kids?
yeah. So I straight away knew that, and the way the interactions were happening, and so that was my. And as a 5 or 6 year old, I couldn't communicate that to my parents. All I did was my emotions were getting to me, and it's over time it got better, and I was able to adapt, and I guess the school and the kids were able to adapt to me as well, and I would say majority of the teachers were really good to me, and some of them obviously didn't know how to handle a child with a disability, and there were a couple of them were like very horrible, but that they were horrible to other kids as well. So, but one or two I felt that was targeting me. So, but I just brushed it aside, and I think from year 6, 7 onwards, it started improving to the point that from year 8 onwards till my O levels, the group of friends I had from year 8 onwards were like still to this date are my lifelong friends, and especially in the O level time in year 10 and 11, that particular class I really bonded, and I felt I had it was a safe space for me, and we the uniqueness of that class was we were all had to do Western music, and except for one or two of us, the rest of us didn't know head or tail about the scale. So we used to always get into trouble with our teacher. But and to be really honest, we all of us didn't really apply ourselves. We were not academically gifted, but today most of that class are doing really well in life. So I guess we were more practical than theoretical, so to speak. And all over the world, they are scattered, and in Colombo as well. I actually, because I just came last week, I met some of them, and a couple of the friends I met, I actually met them after 10 years. So the bond, even though we don't meet regularly, the bond is huge, and as if we have only saw them a couple of days ago, kind of thing. So yeah, in some ways, I was really blessed to have those kind of friends in my life.
And now, Primal, you mentioned how your grandfather always dropped you to school, and that you had I would say, a clique of friends who you still are in touch with.
Yeah.
But now you said you would always cry at home every day after school. How did your parents deal with that? What kind of moral support did they give, and what kind of encouragement were they in overcoming all these problems?
Yeah. So yeah, I think again, it took me a long time to get adjusted to school. So my parents were overwhelmingly supportive, and they never pressurized me, and they kind of understood what I was going through. Not exactly, but um, obviously I was going through trauma, and my parents were always trying to look for better ways to improve my condition, and that's why they took me to the US when I was 3 years old, and so I couldn't have asked for better parents, and they realized that we were lucky enough because my father was in the airline industry, so we travel regularly, and they noticed as well that Sri Lanka may not be conducive for me. So and that's why at the age of 17, as soon as I finished my O levels, with a lot of people doubting their decision and my decision as well, to for me to go overseas by myself. And
Now, let me interject, Prima. Sorry about that. But before we move into that era of your life,
yeah.
now, while you were schooling, were there any kids who bullied you? Were there problems as such?
Yeah. So I mean, school life can be tough. There were kids. I mean, had a go at me, and but but like I said to you, I had a group of friends that really kind of protected me, and that was and they went out of the way to help me. And I just can remember a couple of incidences where I was after surgery, and it was very difficult for me to walk, and a couple of my friends used to carry my bag, and I didn't ask them to do it, and they would always look out for me, and towards the end of year 10 and 11, I just formed this bond with like 4 friends, and because of my challenges, I guess I was a bit angry towards society, and so I thought I had a little bit of anger management issues, but then I met these 3 other boys. They also had anger management issues, so I kind of we bonded in that way,
So they were your buffer against all these problems that society threw at you.
Yeah, it's kind of, but we just bonded as brothers, and we did everything together, and like I said to you before, the key thing was that they accepted me as Primal Fernando, not Primal Fernando with a disability, and they knew that I had challenges, and they kind of helped me along the way, and so that was the refreshing part, and um, I wouldn't say that I got severely bullied, but it's just schools. It was a rough environment.
Like Primal said, he had unwavering support from his parents, his friends. So what we want to reiterate to our viewers also, if you know someone living with a disability, if you have someone with a disability in your family, never give up on them, because they can ultimately pull through and have a very positive effect on society, as we have living proof here in our studios today. So, and also the other important fact that I want to mention, and which we mentioned on our previous program on cerebral palsy as well, a child living with disability is prone to bullying, to certain forms of abuse. So you as parents should keep a lookout to ensure that they don't undergo such negative experiences and to protect them. So now continue on with our conversation. Just another question about your schooling life. Were you able to keep up academically with your classmates? Were there any difficulties in doing so?
Yes, so because I had only function of my left hand, so I was in some subjects I was struggling. For example, writing mathematical drawings. So if it was taking 2 minutes for a child with both hands, it used to take me 10 minutes, and I remember a couple of incidences where my friends were helping me to draw something, and the teachers actually got angry with me and a couple of other friends that helped me, and again it's a matter of having that empathy, and I was not trying to get ahead by just that I couldn't do it properly, and yeah, so it's I think teachers have to be more understanding, and I got that to a certain extent, but there were gaps, no doubt about it. So
right now, you mentioned that after your schooling life, at the age of 17, you migrated to Australia.
yeah.
So how was that experience?
So it was the
Was it more conducive to a person with disability,
yeah,
as
so
contrast to what you experience here in Sri Lanka?
yeah, I would say so. The only reason why I went, so during my last year of school, that was the most toughest, because I was under pressure to do well in my O levels, and 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 that was the most traumatic year for me, actually. Like my nothing to do with school, just I felt, I mean, I know for a fact that I had to compete with an unfair system, right? And
Because all the others were not facing the challenges that you were facing at the time.
yeah, and it's like you're playing cricket with one hand, and whereas others are playing with two hands. So and
Was there a lot of pressure from your parents as well?
absolutely not, and they never put pressure on me, and because they knew, and they were so supportive, and I must also add and my brother as well. I don't want to forget others. He will get angry with me. One and only guy, so he was brilliant as well. He was always there to, and he was 4 years younger than me, and he was always unwavering support. And those four people, my parents, my grandfather, and my brother, were the inspiration to me, because they always went out of their way to help me. And so I just wanted to give you a couple of examples in my O level year. So even though I was facing all these barriers, I was still aiming to get, my target was to get at least 3 Ds and 5 Cs, and at the time my health was deteriorating, like especially my leg. So I met this doctor as well, Professor Randunu Korea. I will get to that later. He was helping me psychologically to get ready for my O levels and also subsequent surgery. I think partly because I probably put pressure on myself as well, because I was so determined to succeed, and that almost got the better of me, because the first day of my exam, it was Sinhalese, and I thought that after the exam, that's a very difficult paper, and I thought, here we go, the match is over, because I thought I'm not going to get through Sinhalese. So, and the next day I had a kind of a panic attack, and I was so determined to not to continue my exams, and my parents tried to persuade me otherwise, and also one of my teachers came as well. So an hour before the exam, I was not ready to go to school. And
but your entire family got together, and your teachers as well.
Or just one teacher,
and encouraged you to sit for the exam.
And they said to me, don't worry about the results, just do the best you can.
So what was the ultimate result? If you don't mind.
Absolutely. I got 7 Cs and 1 S. So and the day I got my results, again I was after my last surgery, and my friends were kind of helping me to go to the school as well, because I was limping my way, and I remember I had, I think I had a cast, I can't remember, and I just it was a massive rush to look at the results, so I just stayed back. I sat there was like a veranda area, so I just waited, and I actually got one of my friends who's in the US now to actually go and check the results. He was part of that, the 4 friends that I had, and he said, Machang, you got through, and I because we used to joke a lot. I said, don't joke, because this is a serious matter. And they said, you got through. And then I waited till the others went away, and I went and saw the results, and I couldn't believe it in my eyes, that I did that.
Given all the obstacles that you had to overcome, from your first day of school up until the O levels, the bullying, the name calling. So given all that, but you were still able to get through your ordinary levels. How was the response from your parents?
So that day, I think when I came home, and my father was at work, I called him from a phone booth.
Those days mobile phones were not available.
So I said, Tati, I got through, and he was so overjoyed, and so was my mother. And probably I'm the only guy. Back then there was this Chinese place called the Flower Drum. Probably I was the only one to get treated at Flower Drum for getting 7 Cs and 1 S. So and also, just talking about perception, so my parents were really overjoyed, because and this is the story about the challenges I had during my exam. This is the first time I'm kind of relaying that to the public, or my friends even. So nobody knew, right? So one of my friends came up with an innovative way of telling the results. So, the standard practice was that if you get 4 Ds and 4 Cs, you'd say 4-4. And so, but he came up with idea of saying 4-4 when I knew that he didn't get it. So I asked, why did he come up with that way of saying? He said, Machang, because people always have a bad perception of you, but you still have got through. It's just that they didn't bother to ask you what exactly happened, or what your results were. So, and I thought that's a good way of looking at it, because when I went home and people started calling and asking, so how did you get, how did you fare in your exam? So, and one guy said to me, oh, it's a shame that you couldn't get a D. And so, and I thought I'll use my friend's method, and I used to say I got 7-1. It's technically not wrong, so it just the way it was, the way people interpret things,
Definitely.
So, and after that nobody asked me those questions again. And it's a joke that goes around in my family and with my friends, that we kind of use a different way of announcing our results.
Definitely. Now, talking to Primal Fernando and connecting to our previous program of cerebral palsy, definitely a person with disability, the treatment approach is definitely family centered. So, if you have a child with disability in your family, it's very important that you give them positive reinforcement, be there through them with all their difficulties. So, that is another message that I want to reiterate today on our program on Helpline. Now, Primal, so you got through O levels, you went to Australia. Now, it's my understanding that you are working for a big company there, and also most importantly that you are mentoring young people with disability there in Australia.
Yes.
So, what is the situation with that?
Yeah. I had a physiotherapist. He's a well-known guy in Sri Lanka. He used to be the cricket team's physio, Alex Konturi. He's the one who suggested to me that, why don't you try Melbourne? I'm from Melbourne, and he even got me a map and said, this is the area that I live, and try and go. And so I just went to the embassy without not much expectations, because my expectations were kind of dashed. So I got the visa in quick time to see I had only 2 weeks to prepare, and it like hit me really hard that I'm just traveling to a country I don't know nobody.
You had no idea about.
Yeah, as they say, fortune favors the brave. Yeah. I was so lucky that I just met these people, that family that I don't we didn't know, and they really helped me. This uncle, auntie, and their kids, Arya Rajas, so they were really good to me, and kind of gave me, because I was 17, I was a young kid, and Australia can be challenging as well. So I was really focused to do well, and the first 5 years in Australia were really tough. I had to work hard to not only do my studies, and also because it was a challenge for my parents to send me, so financially, so I only got their support to pay my school fees up for a couple of years. Then I set myself up because I got an internship, and that kind of started my career. And once I finished my degree, I was able to work for that company. And then my longest stint is that I actually worked for the state government of Victoria for the last 15 years. So my core skill set is in IT.
So your bachelor's degree was also in IT?
Yeah, so it was a Bachelor of Business in Business Information Systems. And so I was doing that, and the last 4 or 5 years, the Victorian government had an initiative to increase the number of people working for the Victorian government, because they also have similar problems employing people with disabilities. So they set a target, 6% by 2021, and then 12% by 2024 or 5. Don't quote me on it, but around those figures. And one of the things they did was they were trying to encourage people who are currently employed, to take it was called a employee-led network, and so that they would work in partnership with various departments and to try to increase the numbers. It was a pure accident, that I met one of the founders of that network, and he kind of encouraged. He also had cerebral palsy, and he kind of encouraged me to be part of it. And initially, I was kind of sitting on the bench, so to speak, doing a little bit of things, and then suddenly I was propelled into a situation where, like you're doing now, we did a in Melbourne, International Day for People with Disabilities is really huge, so we did a entire day of programs. So one of the things were that I had to moderate a leadership session of 4 senior leaders, and in terms of the ranking, I'm very junior. So here I am. At one point, I am organizing the event. The next thing, I've been asked to moderate an event of 4 senior leaders, and
so this event was for people with disabilities.
International Day for People with Disabilities, right, on 3rd of December.
Okay.
And because they called there's a term they use, disability champion. So each department has a disability champion. So they also have, even though the infrastructure is there, they have various barriers. So they kind of try to intervene. So each department is huge, and sometimes you have to go to the top to get things done. A bit like here. So it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that kind of gave me the confidence, and then they realized that that I had some leadership potential, and then I was asked to co-chair the thing, and they were doing things, but I just wanted to do something different, and I about 3 years ago I organized the largest forum for people with disabilities. It was called the Career Development Forum, to work out what we do. So there are people actually were within the public sector that are in the low paid job, and they've been there for 10 years, no progression because of their disability, and their self-confidence were really down. And so initially people didn't believe in that concept, right? But I knew that I structured the program because of my IT background. I'm kind of good at project management, and so I got the format of the program in order, and then when I went for funding, so we had some little bit of money in that employee-led program, and week before they initially agreed to do it, and then a week before they pulled the funding on me, and they said because the cost was more than they were expecting, and I said, look, we're going to get the numbers, and they were doubting me because I was kind of a new kid on the block, with an Asian background, and telling them what to do, kind of thing. So I think sadly there's an element of that happening in Melbourne, but I kind of brushed this aside. So I went to another avenue and got
the required funding,
and then I managed to pull 120 people, and everybody was overwhelmed by that, because and it was hugely successful, because we kind of showcased about 10 people, and all of them got better jobs. And it's about stories like me, and one of the senior leaders who came, he didn't know me at the time, but he just kind of realized this guy can do something, and then it helped me to get to leadership roles, and it also helped me to progress my career as well. I must add that this role was purely a voluntary role. So I had my day job in IT. I did this as a volunteer, So, and there were some people who were getting paid to do that, whereas I didn't get paid, So, thank you.
Definitely. Now, with the time constraints that we have, we are coming towards the end of this edition of Healthline.
Sure.
But before we wind up, Primal, now you are living proof that you can overcome so many disabilities. You can go through so many challenges in life, but still you can succeed in life. You're a person who has completed his O-levels, done a bachelor's degree. You're a father with a happy family. So, what is your message to all our people out there, not just in Sri Lanka? I know for a fact that this program is followed by people across the globe by YouTube as well. So, what is your message to these people who are facing these challenges day in and day out? I know it's no easy task.
Yeah.
I know it was not an easy journey for you.
Yeah.
So, what is your message to them?
Yes. My key message is don't give up. And I was fortunate enough last week to be part of an online forum where Professor Saman Mali was talking to some parents about the challenges that people are currently experiencing in Colombo, and I was really saddened by some of the things. So 17 years ago, when I was at school, I had the same challenges. I didn't know that I would be good enough to be sitting here today talking to you, doing all the things I've done up to now, and so for parents and for children, you might think you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but please be persistent and keep at it. You will get through it, and it's just as they say, you have to go through dark clouds to see the sunshine. So just keep at it, and I have seen some progress that Sri Lanka has made, which is encouraging. And for example, there are some specialist centers that are coming through now, like the IIT Center, the Merrill J. Charitable Foundation, and then there's a Children with Special Needs and Cerebral Palsy Center. And Merrill J. Center have recently actually developed an app to remotely diagnose cerebral palsy as part of a post-COVID response. So those are innovative things, but at the same time, what I feel that we need to improve as a nation is that we need to have empathy, and just because you have a disability doesn't mean you're not good enough.
Definitely.
And sadly, the stigma, what I left all those years ago, is still there, and I was so disappointed to hear some of the stories, and these issues that I see, you don't need money to fix it. It's just common sense.
And also the perception of the society, how
Yeah.
you perceive a person with disability.
Yes, and that's what we need to improve.
Definitely.
Because a lot of people don't realize is that disability to a person can happen at any time. You don't have to be, it doesn't discriminate itself. You can be rich, affluent, or you come from different ethnicity or religious background. You can get it at any time due to accident, illnesses, and so on. And once that happens, are you a less of a person? You're not.
Definitely not.
Yeah, and I see that challenge that we need to overcome, and I think there has to be more emphasis by the relevant authorities to actually put some structures in place. I think that's, from what I see, from if I compare things in Australia to Sri Lanka, that's what lacking. And please give me a couple of more minutes, Dilshan. I know we are running out of time. One of the key things that I felt when I stepped out of the plane in Melbourne at 17, which was a really big factor for me, is just that in Australia, people started treating me Primal Fernando, not with a disability, and I was actually overwhelmed by that, because I was always the I was known as a person with the disability, and it didn't actually, I was labeled that way.
So you were accepted into society.
Yeah, and that actually really helped me to improve my confidence, because and I was struggling with my confidence, and and the other thing is the way some doctors approach this kind of thing, and I know there's you interview a lot of brilliant doctors. They are really good, and I just wanted to relay a story about my doctor that changed my life. Sadly, he has passed away, Professor Randunu Korea. He actually was the so I had a couple of surgeries and an accident in between my cerebral palsy diagnosis, and that actually he's the one who corrected my leg, and not only corrected me, he had this patient centric approach, and he knew I was struggling psychologically because of lack of self confidence, and he just built on that. Now, as I said, I have a family of my own, and my wife and my daughter are my biggest supporters. And my daughter, I just wanted to mention, and this is why we should not be corrupting people, especially children, to say that if you associate a person with a disability, that might be a bad omen for you or anything like that. So my daughter from day one was known me as a person with a disability, and even at the age of 5, she was doing things way beyond her age to help me, and she never sees me as a person with a disability. Just and that's why, I hear some of the stories where kids are treating other kids the same way, and they're young kids, right? And so there's some kind of bad influences have creeped in. So I think that's what we need to improve.
Definitely. So that is my message to you from this edition of Healthline. Once again, thank you very much for joining us this evening, sharing your story. I'm sure it's no easy task laying your life in front of the camera and sharing your challenges that you had to face. So thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you, Dilshan. I just want to commend you and your team, and especially the program you did a couple of weeks ago, because I just shared with your producer after that program that you and Dr. Delaney did. This young man approached me, and we connected via LinkedIn. So he just recently graduated from Jawaharlal University, and he has not been diagnosed for 26 years. So going through your program, he realized that he may have cerebral palsy. So I said to him, I'm hopefully going to meet him soon, and I said to him he has to get a proper diagnosis, but he says the signs that you and Dr. Delaney explained is
Similar
there.
to what he had.
Yes, and that's a remarkable story. So I take my hat out to you for doing that, and because this is what we need, and we need to encourage people to because he actually said to me, Primal, that I was struggling because for 26 years I didn't know what I had. The doctors did surgery on my legs, but they never told me what I had. So I think that's a credit to you and your team.
Thank you so much. I'm extremely happy to hear that we have been able to touch at least one life, and with your program today I think we'll be able to touch many more. So once again, thank you very much, and with that message we wind up from this edition of Healthline. Until we meet you again next week with your weekly dose of wellness, This is me, Dr. Dilshan Fernando, wishing all our viewers Aibowan.